Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we do a mid-January walkthrough of my overwintering plants. So let's go. All of these plants are in container pots. What I'm planning to do is take each container pot down and review it with you, just to show you what's in the pot and basically what's happening with each of these plants. It has been 1 month since I checked on them. I honestly like to check on the plants about every 2 to 3 weeks, but I was away on vacation and I'm finally getting around to checking on these plants. So let's go ahead and get started with our first pot. This is a large pot of proven winter Supertunias. I am trying to overwinter these and I'm not sure how these will end up doing when they eventually make it through the winter. Nevertheless, you can see they look good. We have some green growth happening on here. There are definitely pieces on here that don't look good. They never probably looked good. It's just that I kept some pieces on here because I wasn't sure if they were going to leaf out or not. At this point, this section here does not look like it's going to leaf out. So what I want to do is come in with my hand pruners and I just want to cut off any section that to me does not look very good. This step is not necessary right now. The biggest thing is checking on water, but I might as well come in here and cut off any section that doesn't look good. And most likely this whole section here was dead from the get-go, but I never cut it back. So it's a good time for me to be cleaning up my plant. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you've had success overwintering a Supertunia plant. Also let me know, when is your average last frost date and how did you overwinter it? Did you bring it indoors and treat it as a house plant? Did you put it in a garage or down in your basement? Or perhaps you were able to successfully overwinter it outside because where you live, the plant is hardy. This will be a good experiment for me. I just want to try it and see what ends up happening with this plant. I'd also like to see if I can take cuttings off of it. Now, obviously, I would not be selling those cuttings because that's illegal. But I know a number of you have told me you've had success propagating your Supertunias from cuttings. So I want to try it just for myself to see if I can be successful. I have had success propagating regular petunias, so it would be fun to just give this a try, just so I can maybe add another plant to my garden if I wanted to. So I'm finding pieces that look dead and I'm just cutting them off. I wouldn't have wanted to do this when I originally brought the plant in because I wanted to leave some material on here just to see which sections would survive and then also see which sections don't look good. Now I feel a little more confident, a little bit better about coming in here and cutting off any pieces that don't look good. I still have plenty on here that is alive, that looks great, so that makes me happy. I do know that a lot of my plants are dry at this point because, like I said, it's been a month since I've watered everything. So when it comes to watering today, I'll definitely be giving everything a very good drink of water. I'm not going to saturate them because these plants are dormant, and if I oversaturate them, then the plants can rot and die because my garage is pretty cold. However, on the same token, I know that they are pretty dry and they do need a good drink of water today. And I'm sharing that with you because you'll notice that I'm giving them more water than I normally do. But like I said, I explained why. They're definitely on the drier side. I had put out a poll asking you if you wanted me to show this on video. And 95% of the people that responded said they like these kind of videos and they want to see them. So that made me happy. I just wanted to make sure that this is the type of content that you enjoy seeing. This is obviously a job that I need to do anyway for myself, but I just wasn't sure if it was something you enjoy watching or learning from. So I'm happy to share this type of content with you. If I take my finger and just put it 1 inch deep, I can tell that the soil feels pretty dry. And I'm just doing a close-up so you can see the color of the soil. It's a light brown color. So even though this material here looks okay, I can tell in the center some sections of it look dry. And I do know that this plant needs water, so let's go ahead and give it some water. My average last frost date is around May 15th. That is 4 months from now. So I am not worrying about giving my overwintering plants fertilizer. My goal is not to get them blooming or growing a lot. My goal right now is just to keep them barely alive in a dormant state so that they can continue just living for me the way that they're living for me, with the intent of eventually giving them more sun, more light, and eventually fertilizer. But we're not at that point yet, not here where I live. I'll give another splash of water on this side, and that should be plenty. And I'll check on the plant in about 2 more weeks. Here's our second large pot of the Overwintering Supertunias. I have 2 different colors of them, and I didn't label which ones were which. It doesn't really matter. I just want to get these to stay alive for me. Our temperatures are still very cold, and they will be for the next many months. However, probably I would say around late March, early April, I'm guessing. At that time, I'll start really looking at the forecast, and I'll just see if things are starting to warm up. Probably I would say I want the temperatures during the daytime to be in the 50-degree area. And once the temperatures are a little warmer like that, I can start hardening off some of my plants. But I also need to be mindful of the nighttime temperatures and the plant that I'm trying to harden off. Some plants are more tropical, so they're going to be in my garage for a longer period of time. And some plants can handle the cold. For example, I have Dusty Miller that I'm overwintering. That's a plant that can handle the cold. Usually petunias can handle a little bit of cold. I'm not quite sure about Supertunias, but I'm pretty sure that they can handle a little bit of cold. So eventually I will start hardening off some of the plants that can handle the cold by bringing them out slowly, just like I would any other plant that I've had indoors for a long period of time, like a plant that I've started from seed, for example. So if you are overwintering a plant in your house or in your basement or garage, you'll want to do the same thing when the time comes. Start hardening off that plant. And you don't want to harden off the plants when you see that I'm hardening off my plants. It all depends on what the plant is and where you live. You want to be looking at your forecast, and you want to be mindful of your average last frost date, and just start bringing your plants out slowly and acclimating them. Basically, if I see that there are Dusty Millers being sold at the nurseries, that tells me that I can start hardening off my Dusty Miller. If I start seeing Supertunias out in the nurseries, then that means that it's safe and a good time for me to start bringing out my Supertunias. But of course, still looking at the weather, because you know how it is. Even if you buy a plant at a nursery, sometimes you have to watch for it in the early spring months, because you might get a frost or a freeze that comes in. My goal on my channel is to show you my process for overwintering my plants and what my plans are for bringing them back outside. So I hope that you can take those tips and then apply them to your situation. That is as much as I want to clean up this Supertunia. I'm very happy with what I see here. I don't expect to see much more than this. It's dormant, it's not really doing a whole lot. So I'm very pleased that I still have life going on in here. When possible, I try to water at the base of the plant. I don't want to get too much water on the top part where the leaves are, just because I don't want to introduce any sort of disease or any sort of issues like that. When I'm watering, my goal is not to water so much that I see water coming out from the bottom. I'm just trying to give it a small drink of water, and today I'm giving it a little bit more than I normally do, again, because it's been at least a month since I watered these, and I can tell that they're pretty dry. This is only my second time trying to overwinter Supertunias. The first time I tried, I was not successful because I really didn't try that hard. And also, I think I watered it too much. And also, I think that I brought the plants out when it was still a little too cold outside. So when you try to harden off your plants, you don't want to be doing it when it's still very cold out. It might seem warm, but it's a little bit too much of a shock on these plants, on their system. So you want to just time it just right, because I think that one time when I tried to overwinter Supertunias, I got them to get through most of the winter, but then when I started hardening them off, it was a little too cold for them. And I was bringing them back in at night. It's not like I was leaving them out at night, but still, I think it was just too cold. So this year, I'm not going to be in a rush. I want to take my time and slowly bring these outside. This cleanup job really can happen anytime But honestly, I don't come out in my garage to check on my plants too much. I do bring my car in the garage and I see them. But in terms of this care or this maintenance that we're doing together right now, I don't plan on doing this again until the next time I check on my plants in 2 to 4 weeks. You definitely want to be checking on your plants at a minimum once a month. If you can do it a little bit more frequently, that's even better. Because a month has gone by and I think I probably should have checked on these a week ago. And it's not a job I love to do. I would be lying to you if I said I love coming out here and doing this. I love starting seeds indoors and babying my little seedlings. But when it comes to all the plants, because I have a lot of plants that I'm trying to overwinter, it is a little bit of a chore for me, partially because this is in my unheated garage. And my garage with the heater on today, because I needed the heater on, it was just so cold for me and my feet. Right now it's 47 degrees Fahrenheit in here. Without the heater this morning, it was 40, I think, 39 or 40 degrees. So when I know I'm doing this type of job, I'm going to be out here for at least probably hour and a half to 2 hours by the time all is said and done. So that's a long time to be out here in the cold. I know it's a poor excuse, but I got to be honest. But I figure it's a good time for me to do this cleanup because, like I said, I do want to try to take cuttings. On my channel, I do show how to propagate plants, but I will not show how to propagate plants that are patented. If you want to experiment with that on your own, you definitely can, but it's not something that I'm going to say is the right thing to do. It's just I want to experiment with it for myself, for my own garden. I'm not looking to do a perfect job. I'm just looking to do a half-decent job, just enough to get it to be cleaned up a little bit. Give it a splash of water, and on this side as well. When you have a large pot, you want to make sure that you're getting the water on all sides. You don't want to just water it right here thinking it's going to reach the whole pot, especially if you have a big pot like this. The beauty of YouTube is we can show you all the successes and hide our failures. I don't want to do that. I want to show you my failures because I'm a regular gardener just like you. I had 6 large Supertunias. Out of the 6, 3 that I just showed you look great. 3 look like this. These look like they dried out. But, you know, that doesn't mean they're dead. One way I could check to see if they're still alive is just take my fingernail and scratch. And if I see a little bit of green, which I think I do right there, then that tells me that it's not possibly a lost cause. And if it is, that's fine. These things happen. What we're going to do is we're not going to clean this up because, I mean, there's no use in doing that right now. We're just going to give it a really, really good drink of water and hope for the best. You'll have to keep watching my videos when I do the next tour in here to see if this is coming back to life. And if it doesn't, we had nothing to lose, right? I always say that when you overwinter a plant, you have nothing to lose, but you have something to possibly gain. I'll give it a little bit more water and we'll see what ends up happening with this guy. Here's our next one. Once again, I'm pretty sure it just got dried out. So I'm going to give it a nice, good drink of water and hope for the best. Once again, though, I'm not giving it water where I necessarily care for it to drip out of the bottom. I'm just giving it a good drink of water, a little bit more than the 3 that looked much better, and we're going to see what ends up happening. Fingers crossed. When I first started overwintering plants in my unheated garage, I killed so many because I loved them to death. I overwatered them. So I've learned too much water is not a good thing, but too little of water is not a good thing either. That's how we learn, right? I was on vacation, these things happen, no big deal. I normally show you to look at the soil color, and if it's a light brown color, that means that the plant needs water. And also to take your finger and put it in about 1 inch deep. And if it feels dry, then the plant needs water. I won't be showing you that with all my plants today because I can almost guarantee you everything needs water. It's been a month. So we're going to go ahead and give this water as well. This is a Martha Washington geranium or a regal geranium. I like to overwinter geraniums. It saves a lot of money that way. when it comes to the regal geranium, I prefer to overwinter it in a pot in my garage so that it's dormant. It's not necessarily blooming for me, but it also is just staying alive in this cool area. I showed in a video recently my process for propagating this type of plant. I'm experimenting, I've never done it before, and I made a video showing that. So I can link that down below if you want to check it out. I haven't checked on that cutting. I only took one cutting, I still want to take more, but I don't want to check on the cutting and see if roots were being formed because I don't want to disrupt the cutting. I want to just leave it as is. What I'm doing with this guy is I'm just coming in and pulling off any crispy leaves that I might see. They're not completely crispy, but they're a little yellow. I'm just cleaning it up. And right here where my hand is a flower bud. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. I just don't want the plant to put its energy into having any blooms, any flower buds. The goal is just to keep the plant alive. And on a different day, I'm still planning to come in and take a lot more cuttings off of this plant. But for right now, it just needs some water. My garage has some windows, but my plants are not necessarily right next to the windows. And I also don't have any grow lights on any of these plants. I have a total of 2 regal geraniums. This is the second one. If I had watered these, I would say 2 weeks ago, they would probably look a little bit better. But I'm not too worried about it because right now all I'm trying to do is just keep them going, keep them alive. This is another one that I'm going to come in and take cuttings off of it as well. I really want to try to propagate this plant so I have more of this plant as well as many of the other plants that I'm trying to overwinter. It's actually a great time of year to experiment with things like that. We have such a cold winter here in New Hampshire that little jobs, little projects like that are actually fun to do. Once spring, summer, and fall are here, I'm just way too busy in my garden to worry about propagating plants like with cuttings. So again, I'm just coming in and cutting off any of the leaves that either look crispy or are yellow. If I didn't do that and all I did today was water because of, let's say, time, that would not be a problem at all. The number one thing that has to be done today is watering these plants. This guy definitely needs water. It's very sad. If I'm noticing some spots on the leaves, I'm not worried about it too much, but if that bothered you, you could definitely remove those as well. I just have a lot of plants I need to water, and I don't want to spend too much time with the cleanup part of what I'm doing today. Give this a nice drink of water. With the last Martha Washington plant as well as this one, I'm noticing that water is definitely dripping out of the bottom. The soil, because it became hydrophobic, will end up being fine. It's just that it needed a little bit extra water today. I was a little afraid at how my plants would be looking, but I'm very pleased. Normally, this plant right here, it's called Purple Heart, would be treated as a house plant. I got all of these plants from my sister-in-law. She had them in one container pot, and I was able to divide or propagate the plants. So I have 4 pots of this Purple Heart. And this is a plant that's very easy to propagate from cuttings. Again, you better believe it, I'll be propagating a whole bunch of plants very soon, including the Purple Heart. So actually they look really good considering how dry the soil is. I can tell that it's dry not only from the light brown color, but the pots seem pretty light as well. So we'll give them all a drink of water, but they actually look really, really healthy. I'm very happy with that. These guys, on the other hand, well, I do see some green on some of them. Other ones don't look as good. So these are Diamond Frost Euphorbia. And yes, they are just barely sticks. So this is my first time overwintering both of these type of plants. And I'm guessing that hopefully as long as I can keep the bottom part of it going, that the plant will flush back for me. And if not, I had nothing to lose. You might be wondering, why didn't I bring all these plants indoors? These are a lot of plants, and I don't want to have to take care of and baby plants during the winter, especially right after the first frost. I want a little bit of a break. So I actually just prefer to keep plants in my garage, and whatever's going to live for me will live for me. I'm just coming through right now, and I'm trying to pull off anything that doesn't look good, but I don't have my hopes up very high for these plants, and if I was able to get even one plant of the Diamond Frost Euphorbia to survive, that would be great. it would probably be beneficial at this point for me to just bring one plant in and see if I can get it to come back to life. This is the best looking one. I'll see on a different date. I may end up doing that. Come the middle of January, I am usually okay with starting to bring in some of the plants into the house. Not all of them, but some of them. So out of this tray, I would be okay taking some cuttings of the Purple Heart and trying to propagate a few cuttings. And when it comes to the Diamond Frost Euphorbia, I would be okay with maybe bringing in the best looking plant, which looks like this one, and seeing what I can do with it, if I can revive it. And if I can revive it, then maybe I can also try to propagate it a little bit more. So when I do an indoor seedling tour, don't be surprised if you start seeing some of these outdoor plants coming into my house, even if it's not a whole plant, just little cuttings of them. And if you look at this Purple Heart, look how big that is. Right there, it's even pushing out some new growth. It is actually very, very happy in my unheated garage. Here is Fuchsia, and it looks really good. It's dry, like everything else, but I'm happy that it still looks pretty good. And the second Fuchsia, from day one, never looked very good. And it continues to look okay. The big thing that I care about is that it's not dead. You'll see that it is pushing out some new growth where we have some of the light green leaves coming. So that's the main thing, that we're just trying to keep the plant alive. This is yet another one that I want to be able to take cuttings from. I'm not planning to make videos when I take cuttings of all these different plants because I'm not an expert at it. If I'm successful, then I feel confident to make a video on it. But I'm happy to at least tell you what my plans are. So be on the lookout for that. And of course, if I'm successful, I'll also give you an update this season just to let you know how things are looking. And if I'm not successful, I'll give you an update and let you know that things didn't work out. I'm just lifting it, and I think I'm going to give it a little bit more water, especially this one. For whatever reason, this one seems lighter than that, but I'm going to give them both water, just a tiny bit more. I successfully overwintered these plants in my garage last year. It was only one plant, and then off of it came a little baby. Someone told me it's called Bird of Paradise, although I've never seen it bloom before. I'll have to look at how do you get it to bloom. But I think up here in New Hampshire, people will treat these as a house plant. And since I was successful at overwintering them in my garage, that's all I'm doing again. They look really good actually, but once again, they're very dry. You can see from the soil color and also when I put my finger in there, pretty dry. I like having all of my plants on what I call the rolling cart, which is just something my husband put together for me, and it's on wheels. It allows me to roll my plants outside eventually, but then roll the plants back in. It comes in really handy for plants that I'm overwintering, but also for seedlings that I'm starting indoors when it comes time to harden those off. So you just saw those birds of paradise. Well, this is either Mandevilla or Diplodenia. I think it's Mandevilla that has more of a vining type of habit, and Diplodenia is more of a bush habit. Regardless, this looks like it's vining, and I bought this in a container pot with that Birds of Paradise. And there was like just one or two plants, and I was able to divide it and turn it into more plants. This is another plant that I've successfully overwintered in my garage. I know a lot of people like to overwinter these in their house, and if you do that, you can keep them blooming. But like I mentioned again, I don't want to have all these plants to take care of. I just kind of like to set it and forget it. The only thing is, by overwintering a plant in the garage like this, I'm not going to see blooms until much later in the summer, unless I was to bring it back inside and get it jump-started, which I don't think I plan on doing. So it looks pretty good, but I'm just coming in and just cleaning it up, pulling off any leaves that maybe don't look so good. Again, none of this is absolutely necessary, but when it comes to leaves on the base of the plant, it is a good idea to remove those because those leaves that touch the soil could harbor disease. So since we're here, we might as well pull off some of the leaves that are going to fall off anyway. If I had watered this plant a few weeks ago, maybe these leaves would not be falling off as much. But honestly, when you usually have this type of plant in a dormant state like I do, it's almost inevitable that most, if not all, the leaves are going to fall off. And that's okay. That's expected to happen. But then the plant will also send off new shoots, just like right here. This section here does not look like it's alive, but I'm gonna leave it for now, and on a later date, if I don't see any new growth coming in, I can always come in and just cut it at the base. I might as well just come in with my hand pruners and cut off some of the flowers that are spent or don't look good anymore. Surprisingly, this plant can keep blooming for me, even in the garage. But because it became a little too dry, the first thing that the plant's gonna do is just drop its flowers. And then eventually, then it's gonna start dropping its leaves. By the time I'm all done with this tour, you're gonna understand why I prefer not to bring all of these plants indoors under my grow lights or in a sunny window. It would be so much space that they would require, but also a lot of work. I think if they were inside, I'd probably have to water them weekly. So from that standpoint, I'm definitely a lazy gardener, and I want low maintenance when it comes to all these overwintering plants. But I get it, if you want to have it indoors and you want to enjoy blooms all winter long, that's also very nice. And I might get to a point sometime where I might just bring one plant inside and enjoy it for the winter months. You never know. And give it some water. And I'm not too worried that some water is dripping from the bottom here. That is why we have drainage holes in the bottom of our pots. In case they get a little too much water, or because they needed the water, you want to make sure that the water can drain in the bottom. You don't want your plant sitting in very wet soil. This guy definitely looks a little pathetic and sad, but you can see it wasn't a very big piece. I'm guessing it was probably one that I divided off of a larger piece. So I'm not going to try to mess with it right now. All we're going to do is give it some water. I'm going to give it a little bit more because it seemed very dry. Let me know in the comments if you've successfully propagated Diplodenia or Mandevilla from seed. I believe these are the seed pods, but you can see they're pretty limp. They got all dried out. I was hoping to collect some seeds off of the plant, so sometime I hope to do that. But yeah, let me know if you've ever had success doing it. I think if I lived in an area where this plant was a perennial, by now I would have experimented with it. But here in New Hampshire, you typically won't see it blooming until middle of summer. So to try to be able to collect the seeds off of it, I think can be kind of tricky. But that doesn't mean I don't want to try. Hopefully one day I can try. Just pulling off any of the crispy leaves I see, not worrying about every single one, just overall, if I can get some of them, why not? Well, so far I'm feeling pretty good about my plants, I have to say. I was a little worried, a little nervous. I would have come out here a few weeks ago, but I kept telling myself I would like to make a video because I don't feel like it's right to show you my process for how to overwinter a plant in the fall time, but then not bring you along during the winter months. Part of the reason I make these videos is for it to be a reminder to you to go out and check your plants, especially if they're in an area where you can easily forget about them. I made a video on checking dormant bare root geraniums, and a number of you reached out and said that you forgot about yours, so it was a reminder to check on yours. Videos like that, typically, I don't make them for them to go viral or to be popular. I make them to show you, like any video I make, I like to just show you what I'm currently doing, and if it's something that you followed along and are doing as well, I want it to be a reminder to you to check on your seedling or check on your overwintered plant, or this is what I'm doing to my winter sown containers, and maybe you should do something similar. That's why I like to show these types of things, just to show you how I'm doing things, and maybe you can tend to your plants in a similar way. You can see how light this pot is. It needs water bad. Sometimes I'll just give it a little drink, let it soak in, and after it's soaked in a little bit, give it a little bit more. As a reminder, I normally would not be giving this much water every month. It's only because they seemed very dry and they really needed it. It's totally dependent on how warm of a room your overwintered plants are in, how big of a pot your plants are in, what the plants are, because some plants take in more water than others. so many different factors. I've had that question before. Exactly how much water do you give a plant in a X size pot? Unfortunately, there's no exact formula. It's just a matter of all the things I've shared with you already on things to check for. And here's our last Dipladenia. I know that this plant would definitely be looking healthier. It would have glossier leaves if I'd watered it earlier, but it's not dead. So don't be so hard on yourself if your plant is starting to look like this, because life happened and by mistake you neglected it. There are so many things in life that come first. Our plants are our babies, but there are other things too that are important. So this plant is not dead, and guess what? If all my plants died, I was not out anything. So we just come in and we just clean it up a little. And if we don't clean it up, that's okay too. But don't forget to give it water if it needs it. That's the most important thing right now. Give it water if it needs it. Don't give it too much water. If you give it too much water, you might kill it also. So since this plant doesn't look terribly great, again, I don't want to fuss with it a lot. I'm just going to make sure that I pull off some of the stuff on here, but otherwise I'm going to leave it alone and let's give it some water. I'm letting it soak in a little bit. And some more. Of course I'm going to show you the better looking plants. Who wouldn't do that? Don't worry, I'll show you the dead ones too. That's half the fun. These are mums. They are a perennial where I live, but unfortunately if I was to put them in the ground in the fall time, which is when you usually see mums in the garden center, there is not a high likelihood that the mum will return for me here where I live, unless I really protected the plant and I got it in super early in the late summer months. Anyway, I prefer to just bring my mums into my garage, overwinter them, but I need to get them in the ground in the spring. Mums take a long time for their roots to establish. Someone asked me recently about their mums, and they said that the color of the leaves was like a lime green color. And I want you to see the color of these. So I don't have any of my plants under grow lights. So it's usually natural that if you don't have them under grow lights, they're going to turn a lime green color. They're not going to be a nice, vibrant green like you would see in your landscape. And that's okay. That just means they're not getting enough light. We don't care at this point. We just want the plants to stay alive long enough for us to be able to get them in our landscape once the average last frost date has passed. When I water, I don't want to water directly on the top. I want to just get right inside the crevices here and water right there. So I am very happy with how these are looking. These look really good. This is another plant that I have killed before because I might get it to overwinter most of my winter, which my winter is very long. It's a long time for me to keep these plants going. I basically bring them in, I don't know, like late October, I think, and I have to keep them in my garage until May. That's a super long time to keep a plant basically going, but I'm very happy with how they're looking. Again, this is another plant. If I have time, I would love to come in, take some cuttings and get these rooted so I have a lot of mums to plant in the spring. I think that would be a lot of fun. And that's a close-up of the other plant. So it's pushing a lot of growth in the center, and in fact, it's even pushing some new growth right here, which is very exciting, and some new growth right over there as well. How fun would that be? So if you are overwintering your mums, then I challenge you to try to take some cuttings, and those you would want to bring inside and do those under your grow lights. Where you live, your average last frost date might be approaching, so that might not be of interest to you. But if you have a long winter like I do, I think this makes for a great project for the winter months. I mean, who doesn't love free plants? And when I do that, I'll definitely show you my results, like anything else that I experiment with. Looks good, does not look good, but may not be dead. We don't know yet. I'm going to give them both a good drink of water. I want to show you close up. You can see in the center, see how it's droopy? that's telling me the plant needs water. I mean, I can tell because the pot is light. I can tell because it's been a month since I gave this guy water. But I can also tell because I'm looking at certain parts of it that don't look good. They're starting to get droopy. But then right there, there's a new little piece of life happening. So this plant looks pretty good, actually. That one, well, this is reality gardening right here. Now, right there, you'll see there's like a little bit of mold. Stuff like that doesn't bother me. I don't worry about that. I mean, it's natural. It's going to happen. That doesn't mean I'm going to throw that plant away. Not yet anyway. So let's give this a nice drink of water. As I'm watering here, I can see the water is going around there. So I could still add a little bit on this side, but I don't need to add a lot because I could see that the water did end up going around. And I'll keep you posted. Let's see what happens with this guy. Sometimes the roots down below are still fine, even if the top doesn't look good. So don't just throw away your plant. Give it some time. This guy from day one never looked good. This is an aster, and it had like one little sprig of green on it when I brought it in for overwintering. So any of the previous videos I've made, I've told you that most likely this will not survive. And actually, I just put my finger in there and it's wet. So I'm not going to give this any water. Most likely this will end up going in my compost pile. And that's fine. There will always be losses when it comes to overwintering, especially when you overwinter a lot of plants. I just love the color of this succulent. It's called something like Echera, or I'm putting the name on the screen because I know I'm butchering it. I only received one of these from my daughter a number of years ago, and then I've been able to propagate it to get more plants. Every year, the poor things stay in my garage during the winter months. Every year, they go outside, they just sit in these trays, and then they come back in the fall. I really want to do a fun project with them this year. I think they're just so pretty. And they merit being in a pretty shallow type of container. And I'm trying to be careful. I don't want to get it necessarily on their leaves, but I'm just trying to water at the base of them. Especially the smaller ones. They seem very dry. So just trying to keep them going so we can do a fun project together. When it comes to this here, I think this was just a small baby of these that just didn't make it. I'm learning that if you're going to propagate these, it's better to keep the little baby on the mother plant for as long as possible before you take it off. If it's very small, it's hard to keep it alive. And this one here was a small one, and again, it's suffering. It's not doing well. This guy is bigger, but I think it got dry, but it still looks okay. This guy is a perennial that should have been put in the ground and didn't. It's a geum, and it's a red color one. Most likely it did not survive for me. It could have in the garage, but I think it just dried out. But nevertheless, I'm going to give it some water and hope for the best. And there's nothing as far as I can see in here, but I'm just going to give it water anyway. Watering a pot with nothing in it. Priceless. But really, isn't that just so pretty? And there's a little baby. I love how they just make these little babies at the bottom. Here we have a whole bunch of hens and chicks, and these are definitely a perennial where I live. I bought them at the end of the season on clearance, and it was in one pot. I went ahead at that time and I divided the one pot so that each little plant was in its own pot. Basically, I was trying to propagate the plant. So I noticed that some of them are even sending off little offshoots or little babies, like this one here. So that's pretty exciting. So you can imagine with these hens and chicks coupled with the Echevera, whatever it's called, the bluish colored houseplant succulent that I just showed you, I think that these two types of plants would look really pretty in a container pot. I'm sure that the hens and chicks would prefer to be outside versus just in my garage all winter, but unfortunately it is what it is. Down on the side here, these were a primrose. I forgot the name, and then someone had told me in one of the comments it was a primrose, and you were right. And they look really sad. Again, it just comes down to neglect. I'm not going to worry about it. I was away on vacation and these things happen, so not a problem. A lot of times with perennials, if the roots are okay, they're going to push out new growth, so I'm not too worried. But otherwise, everything here looks really good. We have winners, we have losers. This I bought on clearance at the end of the season, and it is a lemon coral sedum. It's considered an annual where I live. I see everyone on YouTube that has lemon coral sedum in their yard, and I think that's great where it's a perennial. Because it's an annual here, we have to overwinter it. It may possibly survive outside, but I don't think so. So anyway, it doesn't look great because it needs to be outside, but at least it's alive. And we had hacked it way back just to cut it back. So we'll go ahead and give that water in a minute. Let's go over a few plants here. So these are some mums that I know are dry. They don't look good. That's the problem with trying to overwinter smaller plants in smaller pots. Some plants do okay with it, others do not. I'm finding when it comes to overwintering mums, I probably should have taken the small plant and just put it in a little bit bigger of a pot. But that's okay. We're going to go ahead and we're going to give these water, and you just never know. They may push out growth. I know that they're dry. I have a Dusty Miller here that I had started from seed in, I think, last year or the year before last, and then I just cut it back really hard. I believe Dusty Miller is hardy down to zone 7. I'm zone 5B, so I usually can successfully overwinter those in my garage. I have some more proven winter Supertunias that are on a smaller size, and some look better than others. That looks really good. They originally were very wet when I brought them in. So I think that's why a lot of them rotted, because they just didn't start off on a very good foot. So if I have 2 out of 5, then I'm pretty happy with that. These are the same exact variety as the ones I showed you in the bigger pots. So I'm not too worried if none of these survive. But so far we have one good one and one half decent one. These 3, I doubt it. They never looked good from day one. They already were pretty much dead. So we'll go ahead and just give everything water because I know they all need it. Even these guys are dry, so we're going to water some dead plants. This is what it looks like to water a dead plant, in case you were wondering what it looks like. I'm going to demonstrate it, just like that. And now let's water a plant that's not dead yet. And watering some more dead plants. Am I the only one that waters a dead plant? I hope not. What does Vita Loca teach you? She teaches you how to water dead plants. That's great. This is what you do. You just talk to yourself when you have a camera on and there's no one else in the room. Me, my plants, and the camera. Okay, enough of that. So this is good, and I'm noticing with this guy here, it has water just sitting there. And that means that the soil has become a little bit hydrophobic. It eventually will soak down to the bottom, and if it doesn't, I could take something like a pen and just move it around so that the water does soak in there. But for right now, I'm just going to leave it because I'm pretty sure that's dead. We have some more lemon coral sedum. I had just taken cuttings and I put them in soil. I can tell that they're very dry, but they look good. I mean, they're not dead, which is encouraging. If all of them died, then it would still be fine. I was just experimenting and playing around with taking cuttings of it. Again, I'm not planning to sell these. You don't want to propagate plants that you're not supposed to sell. So I'm not going to sell these. These are just for home use. I had taken clippings off of my plant anyway when I cut it back, so I just put it in soil to see what happens. Just going to put water to all of these because they need it. And in this case, it's very hard to avoid getting it on the leaves. I think it should be fine. Generally, you don't want to do that, but sometimes you can't avoid it. This is just an ivy geranium that I'm trying to overwinter. And it looks pretty scraggly because it's dormant and it's just sitting in my unheated garage. If I had brought it inside, it would be so much more lush and beautiful. I think I'm at a point where certain plants like this one are going to be coming inside. What I like to do with plants that have been in the garage or a plant that was outside and I want to bring it inside is I want to treat it for pests. because I might not see pests on these leaves or on the plant, but I don't want to bring pests into my house. So my plan is to treat it just in case it has bugs. I'll pop up on the screen what I like to use, and I'll be spraying it on the top, I'll be spraying it on the bottom. When it comes to the potting mix, I will probably remove all of this and I will repot the plant in potting mix that I made myself and that I've sterilized, because I don't want to bring in anything like fungus gnats. And then I'll take a yellow sticky trap, I'll put it here just to make sure that if there are any fungus gnats that are flying around, it will trap those. And when I water it, I'm going to water it with water that's mixed with mosquito bits. So I'll do everything possible to treat the plant so I'm not bringing in anything that's going to cause fungus gnats. And I'll probably do the same with this geranium. This is another ivy geranium. They just don't look good, and they never really did. So I want to give them some time to recover, to look better, and take off from me. And then I have a really pathetic looking little geranium over here. And so I'll do the same thing. I'll bring these guys in, start waking them up. But for right now, I know everything needs water, so let's go ahead and give everything some good water. These two guys, I'm not going to bother watering. It's been a few years that I've tried this. I'm not going to try it again. I was basically trying to overwinter New Guinea impatiens. New Guinea impatiens really should be overwintered indoors, not in an unheated garage. They should be in a warm space that has lights. So that's okay. We're going to leave those alone. I bought this on clearance last year. It's a sweet potato vine, and it's basically a tuber that's in here that's dormant. I'm going to give it some water, but before I do, I'm going to dump out the soil and I'm going to show you what the tuber looks like, because I'm interested to see how it looks. I'm just cleaning it up, taking off some of the potting mix, and it looks pretty good. It's like a little potato. I probably could have taken it out of the pot, out of the soil, and tried to overwinter it, bare root, and maybe, let's say, some moist peat moss or something like that. But because it was my first year trying to overwinter it, I just wanted to do it this way, overwinter it in a pot. Basically low maintenance. So this is something that I would love to try to wake up, warm it up, maybe bring it inside at some point and get it going again. That's another one that would be fun to do indoors and then start taking cuttings from it to propagate it. So I should plan on doing that pretty soon. But any of this potting mix that I have in the garage, I would not want to bring this inside. I would rather just start with fresh, clean potting mix that I basically put boiling hot water on, because I want to just make sure that I'm not bringing in any fungus gnats that are in my garage. And I do have videos on my channel that show how I do all that. So if you're interested, just go back to some of my older videos where I'm doing seed starting or potting up plants indoors, and you'll see my process for doing that. So I'm just returning the soil that I took out of the pot. I'm going to put the tag back in. When it comes to something like these tubers, you don't want them to be completely dry, but you also don't want them to be very wet, so they'll rot. So I'm just going to give the slightest splash of water, but that's it. This was another sweet potato vine that I got last year on clearance. I think I paid $1 for each of these sweet potato vines. It was fun to just buy them at the end of the season, just so I could overwinter them. Let's see how it looks. And this is another one that if I can keep it going, I want to bring it inside and wake it up, and then see if I can get some cuttings off of it to propagate it. This one feels a little soft for sure. So I'm going to put it back in the potting mix, but I don't know. Time will tell. We may end up losing it. I want to make sure that I don't put any additional water in the soil today. And next year, again, if I try to overwinter it again, I might just try to put it in peat moss. They really don't need a lot of water at all, but time will tell. And I'll have to research it. Maybe I can cut off a section of it, or see if I can pre-sprout it and wake it up, and then cut off the piece that maybe is starting to rot. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. So no water for you. This is my first year trying to overwinter elephant ear. I've heard other people have been very successful at it. I'm not quite sure I know what I'm doing, but it's an experiment since it's my first time doing it. So what I did was I had 3 pots here, and when it came to these 2 pots, I went ahead and I just cut off the leaves when I brought these plants in for overwintering. But I kept the bulbs in these pots. And then when it came to this pot, I left the top growth on there. This was looking good for a long time, but I think because when we went on vacation, it dried out a little bit. That's why it's not looking so good. So what I'm gonna do is actually, I'm just gonna come in and I'm gonna cut it right here because it looks like it's trying to push off some new growth right there. So I might as well just, for right now, leave that there. And when it comes to these guys, you know, I mean, it's hard to tell what's going on. I could dump out all the soil and check the bulbs, but honestly, I don't care to do that. I just rather leave everything as is. I mean, when I press on this, it's not soft and mushy, it's firm. So fingers crossed that they're okay. So I'm just giving a little bit of water. And the reason I'm doing that is I just want to make sure that if they're getting completely dry down there, they're getting some water, but I don't want to give them too much water because I don't want them to rot out. So again, just a small little amount of water. And because these were cut, I'm trying hard not to get the water on top because I just don't want to introduce any sort of rot. And that should be it. We have a whole tray of variegated vinca vine. I know some of you, where you live, this is very invasive, but this is considered an annual where I live. We do have a periwinkle that is pretty invasive here in New Hampshire, but this is not periwinkle. This is more ornamental. Usually you find it in a window box. So you can see that they are sending out actually some new growth, but I can tell they're very light. They absolutely need water. And I could come in here and really try to clip away at any of the leaves that don't look good, but I don't want to spend the time because it's a lot of work. If I notice there are leaves at the base, I will pick those up, but I'm not going to come in and pick off every leaf that doesn't look good on a plant. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Big thing is to make sure I'm giving everything some water. I started with one plant. I think it's been 3 years now, and then I ended up propagating it through division. I ended up propagating it through cuttings. And now I have, I want to say, almost 30 plants. And when I say 30 plants, each container pot has multiple plants inside of it. So that's a lot of plants. I could take these and probably divide these up even more if I wanted to. So I'm very happy with that. And I do like the way they look. I prefer to have this type of variegated vinca vine in a hanging basket or a window box. I've tried putting it in smaller container pots and it just ends up draping on the ground, and I don't like the look of that. So for this year, I think I'm going to be adding these in my hanging baskets that I usually have on all my trees in my yard. I think these would look pretty in those hanging baskets. But it's definitely a very easy plant to overwinter in an unheated garage like this. In this tray, I have a hodgepodge of things. We have more of the variegated vinca vine. And again, I'm just going through and trying to clean it up a little bit, especially the leaves that have fallen on the base here. I have a 5-gallon bucket right near my feet, so it makes it easy for me to just pull off any leaf litter or anything else that we're cutting up today and just put it in that bucket. So I'm just going to give some water. It's amazing that they're pushing off all this new growth. I think the trickiest part of overwintering plants when you live in a cold area like I do, and when you have such a short growing season in the summer, is how long these plants stay in a place like my garage. It's a long time when you think of it to keep a plant in here. I know I said that earlier, but I always think about that. Like, gosh, these plants, they spent half their life in my garage. This is just a lavender plant that I started from seed last year, and I'm just overwintering in the garage. I have a bunch of lavender that I just didn't get out in the landscape, so I'm overwintering them. And that's another easy plant that I've been able to overwinter in the garage. And then this is a type of Lismachia. I got a cutting of it in a container pot a number of years ago, and I've just kept the plant going. It ends up looking kind of spindly and weak during the winter months, especially in my garage, But this is another one that I have brought in before around, like, let's say February, and I start waking it up again. I may end up doing that again. And then this is another sad primrose. It's not dead, but it looks sad, so we just need to give it some water. And I'm almost sure I bought that primrose on clearance at the end of the season, so hopefully I can keep it alive. And when it comes to my lavender, I will experiment and take cuttings off of my lavender plants and try to propagate those from cuttings as well. This Lysimachia is really a beautiful spiller in a container pot. And I have a bunch of it, and I've kept it going for, I think I'm going on to year 3 now. Last year I did not bring it inside to wake it up. I did the year before. And it does make a difference with certain plants when you do that. So this really is a plant that I should try to bring inside and wake up. But it involves a little bit of work. Even if I don't change out the potting mix, I still want to treat it. So to treat it, I would go ahead and just really drench it with my water that has mosquito bits in it. And I would spray all the leaves, the top and the bottom, with my spray that I have. It's worth the effort. It's just, like I said, it's just a little bit of work. Because if I don't do that, then these plants have to wait until, as I'm getting near my average last frost date, to start bringing them out and hardening them off. And they're only just starting like this. They're not a nice, robust plant. They don't look terrible. They're alive. They're hanging on. Here are 10 more lavender plants, and then I have another tray of 10. So just giving them a little drink of water because they are thirsty. Lavender plants generally don't like a lot of water, but they'll die if they have no water, if you basically let them fully dry out. And I can tell they feel pretty light. But they look good, don't they? So if you ever have a lavender plant or a rosemary plant, try to overwinter it in a container pot in your unheated garage, let's say, and it might surprise you. More lavender. There might be rosemary in here too, I'm not quite sure. And some look way better than others. I have plenty. I'm not too worried about it. Again, these are just ones that I started from seed. Speaking of which, if you struggle with growing lavender from seed, I'm going to put a link to some videos that I made down below in the description. Check them out because I have had success. I feel pretty confident about how I do it. It works for me. My tricky part is then getting the plants out in the landscape, but that's a whole other thing. And I have had people write me and say that they've tried it and then, after watching a video that I made, and then they had success. There are certain plants that just are not as easy to grow from seed, and lavender is one of them. And then trying to get the lavender to survive in a cold region like where I live is a whole other story. But again, if I can come in here and basically take some cuttings and try to propagate the lavender, I think that would be a fun winter project. My rosemary absolutely got dried out. And don't cry over spilt milk, it's okay. The only reason I grew rosemary was to sell it as part of my backyard plant nursery, and I sold many trays of it last year. These are ones that were left over at the end of the season, and I didn't know what to do with them. So I just brought them inside, and I'm sure that some of them are still okay. In fact, I see one that looks really good, but I was planning on growing them again from seed because it was very popular. A lot of people like to buy them. And not to say that these are dead, but they definitely don't look very good. But I'm still going to give them water because I know they need it. And they're very similar to lavender in that they're a woodier type of plant. So you never know. So you could take your fingernail, scratch the stem, and if there's a little bit of green, the plant is probably still alive. So I will water them sparingly, but still they're all getting some water, and then I'll just give it time. But I do have a couple of rosemary plants that survived. So it's not that rosemary won't survive in my unheated garage. You just can't let it dry out. And then these, I believe, are lavender. Lavender and rosemary look very similar sometimes. So we'll see what ends up happening, but quite a few of them don't look good, and a few of them still look okay. I'm scratching the stem on this one. And you never know. It looks a little green, but time will tell. When I put this tray together in the fall, I called this the tray of misfit toys. I expected none of them to survive, and I told myself if even one plant survives, I'm happy. So we have one plant that has survived. It's a type of sage, and this was on the clearance rack for $1. So this would be another fun one to take cuttings of. I don't even know what all the other plants were, so I can't tell you. I'm pretty sure this one was another New Guinea impatiens. But what I'm super excited about, other than the sage, are these two guys here. So these are begonias. They're proven winter begonias. And I had them planted out in this area, where I adopt a spot. And I figured, let me see if I can try to overwinter it. It's not completely dead, but I really want to bring this inside and see what I can do. I mean, it appears like there is some life here, and it's still a little green on the bottom. So that is very encouraging. Last year, I was able to overwinter a wax begonia in my garage, which is why I thought I should try to overwinter these. And then here's the other begonia. So you can see at the base there, it's pushing out some growth. The top doesn't look good, and it shouldn't. I mean, we're in a very cold space, but it's not completely dead. So I will give it some water, and my goal for these two guys is to bring them inside, not today, but very soon, and I will treat them like I'm going to treat anything else that comes inside, put them under my grow lights, and then see what happens. And that might be another fun one to try to take cuttings from. Remember, I'm not selling these. It's just for myself. I'm going to water everything here. You never know. I'm not sure what everything else is. I'm almost sure these are just two plants that came out of a winter sown container. They were annuals. This is a type of Bidens, and this was some sort of type of petunia. But I'm just giving everything water, and if there's any life in there, then they'll come back to life. But there's no use in me going over what are all the rest of the plants because, well, clearly they don't look good. But these were my misfit plants, so it doesn't matter. Very excited about these, and this is a bonus. Together we potted up some daffodils that I dug up from my backyard in the fall time. We put some of the daffodils in here, and these have been in my garage. I have these right near my garage door, so they're actually staying nice and cool. I didn't want to put them in the back where my rolling cart is because it's a little bit warmer there, and I didn't want these to wake up and start pre-sprouting too early. We have another pot like this that's upstairs in my barn. I still need to check on it and give it a drink of water. And then we have a third pot that's down in my plant nursery that we sunk. So I want to see which pot performs the best for me, if any. The top of this looked very dry to me, but as I dig down, it's not horrible, but this would benefit from some water because I have not watered it in a while. So I'm going to go ahead and give it water. When it comes to spring bulbs and pots, this year I'm not planting a majority of them until probably March, because what happens is in my unheated garage, they start waking up too early. And again, my average last frost date, even though it's May 15th, the bulbs really can't go outside until probably April. So I need to hold off because I don't want a whole bunch of them waking up when it's 5-10 degrees outside. In a container pot like this, if the bulbs are exposed because they're not beneath soil level, what will happen is they'll freeze and they'll rot and they'll die. So for me, it's important to start my spring bulbs later on and not too early if I want them in a container pot. Do you remember the hellebore that I bought from Trader Joe's and then I went on vacation and I killed? Look, they're coming back to life. I've had these actually indoors in a sunny window, south-facing window. They've been thriving, but I do want to bring them into my garage. If I notice that they're actually not looking good, I can bring them back inside, but I kind of feel like they would do better in my garage because they do like cooler weather generally. But I'm so excited. I didn't fully kill my plants. And I know some of you said that you were in the same boat, that maybe your hellebore wasn't looking good. But don't give up on your little plants. Just cut them back if they look bad and give them a little bit of water and put them in a sunny window and see what happens. My house during the daytime is about, I'd say 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And my garage during the winter months, during the daytime, is about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And usually hellebore are blooming during the cold months. So I think they'll be better off in the garage. But again, I'm going to monitor them and check them. But I'm really excited that they are looking so much better and that they forgive me for trying to kill them. I didn't mean to. Don't they look good? This plant right here is a weeping pussy willow. This is my sister-in-law's. She had gone away on vacation during the late summer, early fall months, so I took it in for her, and I'm just watching after it for her. So let's go ahead and give it some water. I don't know much about weeping pussy willows. I feel like they are bred or something to be able to weep like this. I wondered if I could take cuttings and try to propagate it, but I don't believe that if I took cuttings, I could make it so it weeps the way that the weeping willow does. And generally, I think the plant looks pretty good. You can see there's a lot of new growth coming, the darker red pieces. So I'm pretty happy that I'm able to keep her plant alive. In this container pot, we have 2 heuchera that are like a reddish color. And that's a perennial. There is lamium, that's also a perennial. It's creeping Jenny in here. In the center, there is a type of grass, a juncus grass. There is a mum in the center as well, but I don't think the mum survived. I think everything else did except the mum. And then this right here is Dusty Miller. I want to come in and take cuttings of the Dusty Miller. I've never propagated it from cuttings, and I think that would be a fun thing to do. I've had a lot of luck starting them from seed, but not from cuttings. And it definitely has become very leggy, so why not try to take cuttings from it? So I'll be experimenting with that. And then the last plant is a holly plant. I need to do something with this. It's a perennial where I live, and I checked the soil. It seems very wet actually, so I'm going to leave the plant alone. And this year we can get this out of my landscape somewhere. I think it's very pretty. I just need to have it out of my garage and into the landscape. And there you have it. Those are all the plants that I'm overwintering in my garage this year. I'm really pleased with how they're looking. Remember, when you overwinter a plant, there is always a chance that you might lose it. But it's such a fun process. I feel like every year I learn from it. Be sure to check on your overwintered plants and drop a comment below. Let me know what you're overwintering and how's it going for you. Also, let me know if you have any questions or comments. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.